Hey guys, welcome to a new video, and in today's video we are looking again at the 2018 United States Senate elections. So starting off with this Senate election, I have filled in the states that I believe are safe for either party. Those states are the ones you see on the screen. And clearly the Democrats are starting off with a disadvantage at 34 seats to the Republicans' 47 seats. So let's go through the battleground states, or states that are going to be quote-unquote closer this election, and see who can take control of the United States Senate. We're just going to start with, the likely, or not. I'm not going to go likely states. We're just going to go west to east and start with Nevada. Now, a lot of people are speculating that Dean Heller will not beat Jackie Rosen, but a lot of people just put Nevada and Arizona hand in hand. Kyrsten Sinema, which is probably going to be her versus Martha McSally, and likely Dean Heller versus Jackie Rosen. People put these two in the same basket, that they're both going to lean to the Democrats. But here's the thing. Kyrsten Sinema is running in an open seat, and Jackie Rosen is running against an incumbent. Here's the difference here. In the state of Arizona, it is in the state of Nevada, it is much closer than it is in the state of Arizona. In fact, Heller leads in a poll or two, if I'm getting this correct, in the state of Nevada. So I'm going to come back to there, but I am going to lean Arizona to Kyrsten Sinema. I think it's Kirsten. Yeah, I think it's Kyrsten Sinema. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna lean Arizona to her, because she does have a very sizable lead against majority of the Republican challengers who are running in the Republican primary, and even the most closest, or the most talked about contender, who is Martha McSally. She even beats her by a pretty sizable margin. Going up to Montana, in the last month, Trump has had the biggest controversy with one of the biggest Washington controversies with Jon Tester over the I guess private citizens, we could call it mix-up with the VA nominations and stuff. Whether that's going to play a factor in Montana really depends on how people like Trump in the state of Montana, which I really don't know what the approval rating is. But if we were to base this just based off of what people in Montana, or Montana constituents, believe about their Senator Jon Tester, the state would lean to him. He has really no major contenders in the Republican primary to be concerned about, but he is the incumbent, so we give him that advantage. We also give him the fact that Montana really is a pretty democratic state when it comes to statewide elections. They aren't afraid to elect a Democrat, and I think that's going to resonate well when you consider Jon Tester. Whether or not the VA mix-up thing plays a role in the Montana Senate election is going to be determined, but I don't see it playing too big of a role, and I think that Jon Tester can keep his seat. Over to North Dakota, Heidi Heitkamp, conservative Democrat, likely running against North Dakota United States Representative at Large Kevin Cramer. They both have the same jobs in different houses of Congress, so it's really two people who have the same job representing North Dakota as a whole running for Senate in the state of North Dakota. What I think is that it's going to be a close. I cannot emphasize close enough race. It might come down to the, 10th percentage points for either candidate who wins this election. But I think at the very end of the day, it's going to be really difficult it's going to be really kind of difficult for it's going to be quite difficult for Heidi Heitkamp to, I guess, compete in a Republican state after Trump was elected. And I know that could play in with Montana and Arizona and stuff like that as well. But it's going to be quite hard for her to pick up those Republican places that she had to pick up in order to win the state in the first place. Mainly because Trump has painted Democrats to be the reason why the nation isn't doing very good, or in the places that the nation isn't doing good, Trump has painted that to be the Democratic part. Now, if you're a person in North Dakota who supports Trump, you're like, hell yeah, the Democrats are at fault. Heidi Heitkamp needs those voters. When it all comes down to it, it's going to be a very close race. One of the closest Senate elections in this country on election night. Heidi Heitkamp needs those voters who are saying, hell yeah, the Democrats are at fault for everything that's wrong with this country because Trump says so. Heidi Heitkamp needs those voters. And that's a problem. Which is why I am very, very inclined to lean this to the Republicans. And I'm not giving her an incumbent advantage in this, because she has incumbent advantage versus Trump loyalty is not on the same level by any means. Trump loyalty is far beyond incumbent advantage when you're talking about a midterm Senate election. So I think that would lean to Kevin Cramer. Going down to Texas, Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz. Beto O'Rourke has made this closer than it should be, but again, I think that Ted Cruz can pick that up, on the lines of 7 to 8 points in that state. At the end of the night, it could be closer than that. It could be a much bigger landslide than that. I just don't think that Beto O'Rourke's going to win at the end of the day. Going up to Minnesota, I don't see why Amy Klobuchar wouldn't win. She's popular. I don't think that the Al Franken situation is going to affect her Senate election. As for the special election, it could affect it a little bit, but again, I think I'm going to give that to the Democrats just as much as I gave Amy Klobuchar her seat. I'm coming back to that. Coming back to Tennessee. Tammy Baldwin is going to be in an awkward situation. She's pretty popular in her state. I mean, reasonably popular to win a midterm Senate election. And since it's Wisconsin, and for the most part, they're a pretty Democratic state, I think that she's going to keep her seat, even if it's a close margin. Tammy Baldwin. Debbie Stabenow is going to win her seat along the lines of 8 to 10 points. I really just don't see anything that can curb her off and throw her as far out as to lose the Senate election in Michigan. Yes, this was a Trump state. Yes, he won the state, but he won it by such a narrow margin that if that election was held again, it might even be even closer or even a flip. That's how close the margin was in Michigan. So it's important to remember that even though it was a Trump state, it was so close that nobody could say what would happen if it was like that again. So I think Debbie Stabenow is going to win that at the end of the day, just because she's an incumbent and just because it's not that much of a Republican state as people paint it to be. It was one election and it was closer than hell. So Ohio, Jim Renacci versus Sherrod Brown. Sherrod Brown's, popular enough to win re-election. I don't know Jim Renacci very well. I don't know if he's very popular. He won a primary among the Republicans, and the Republicans certainly had more of a primary turnout than the Democrats did in that state. Significantly more of a Democratic turnout, even though Sherrod Brown was unopposed. But at the end of the day, I think that the Democrats can pick up Ohio too. At this point, the Democrats have to win every other state on this map, which I guarantee would not happen. I guarantee the Democrats don't pick up every state on this map. If they do, they do. All these states have incumbent Democrats, okay? So it's a possibility, or not Tennessee. I apologize. Tennessee does not have. It's an open election, but majority of these states that are left on here, 9 out of the 10 states that are left on this map have, incumbent Democrat. So they could not. But here's what I think for the most part. Joe Manchin and The Joe Manchin versus Patrick Morrisey election is going to be a close one. Closer than we anticipated before. But Joe Manchin's the incumbent, and Joe Manchin's pretty damn popular in the state of West Virginia. So I'm going to give it to him. Just for the sake of that polls have him in the lead. There was one poll that had Morrisey ahead by 3. But the poll that was right after that had Manchin in the lead by like 5 or 6. All the way up to maybe 7, I don't remember. And the average is Manchin lead, and he's the incumbent, and he's pretty popular in a state, for a Republican state, for let me quote this, a Republican state like West Virginia. His approval rating is pretty good. Tim Kaine is going to win his seat. I just don't see any clear challengers that can, take him off the Senate floor. I'm going to give that moderately to him. Bob Casey, I believe, will beat Lou Barletta. This one was going to be a close one too. It may still be a close one, but I think it's going to get all the way up to about 5 points. The reason I made New Jersey toss-up is because the Bob Menendez scandal and the corruption with Bob Menendez, he's a very corrupt person, has played into the polls tightening significantly. Now, there's obviously the polls that say it's plus 11, plus 12, all the way up to plus 15 points for Menendez. There's also the polls that say it's plus 3, plus 2, even plus 1 for Menendez. The polls that have him plus 1 through plus 3 are very Republican-based polls, even internal polls, okay? Not very reliable polls. The polls that have them up significantly are internal polls, are non-reliable polls, but they're also the very reputable polls. And I'm just going to give this one likely to him. I'm not going to give it safe to him, just for the sake of the polls that have him up plus 1, plus 2, or plus 3 points, but I'm going to give it pretty moderately to him. Angus King's going to win that seat. The only reason I made it toss-up temporarily was because it could be close realistically because of the northern part of the state, but I don't think it's going to be very close. He's pretty popular. Going down to Florida, Bill Nelson versus Rick Scott. Look, Rick Scott is leading in the polls by just a couple of points. But at the end of the day, I think that everything that's happened with Florida in the past year is going to also resonate in November. I think it will. Whether or not you believe it will or not, I think it will. So I'm going to actually lean the state of Florida to Bill Nelson. Going up to the state of Missouri, Claire McCaskill versus Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley is sinking in controversy. As you know, the Missouri governor, as you probably know, the Missouri governor has resigned today. The administration is under fire. And the Attorney General, we don't know. The Missouri people don't know if he knew about anything, if all that. That's just how scandals work. I think McCaskill will carry this, and the polls are in agreement with me that she will win this pretty close, but by a reasonable margin. Here's the state that throws everybody off when I say it. People do not think at all that Phil Bredesen is going to win Tennessee just because he's a Democrat, or that Marsha Blackburn is going to win just because she's a Republican, or that Marsha Blackburn is going to lose just because she's a Republican. However, I think that Phil Bredesen is going to take this, and I think he's going to take it pretty solidly too. The polls that have it close are polls that have significantly less votes than polls that have it a very great lead for Phil Bredesen. Phil Bredesen average is leading by 5.5 points. Now we're far out from the election. This could change. This could change big time. This entire map could change, but I think Bredesen can win there. Mike Braun versus Joe Donnelly. I think that Braun is going to take this state. Very narrowly, but I think he can take it. I think he can beat Joe Donnelly, the incumbent, which gives the Republicans a majority. Out to Nevada, I know I said that Dean Heller was an incumbent. I know that I said he led in a couple of polls, but I think as this year progresses, I think that Jackie Rosen will take that over. Obviously, again, like Tennessee, like Indiana, it can change, and we'll just see how it works out. So here it is. It gives 50-50 Senate, with Republicans taking majority because of Vice President Pence. And this is just going to be really interesting as we see the rest of the year go on, to see how these Senate races turn out. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe, comment suggestions, comment what you would do differently in this video. Thank you for watching.